evening. This is a special coverage on the death of Pope Francis, the 266th Pontiff of the Catholic Church. I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. The announcement was made by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Pope's Carmelengo from Casa Santa Marta, where Francis breathed his last. And this is how the announcement went. I quote, "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of His Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favor of the poorest and most marginalized. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the one and triune God." The Pope's death comes after Holy Week and the day after Easter, the holiest season in the Catholic Church. Hours before his demise, Francis was even seen on his Pope Mobile, greeting the faithful at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. Pope Francis was 88 years old. And also with us, Sean Yao and Gretchen Ho was able to cover Pope Francis when he was admitted to hospital for double pneumonia. So Gretchen, what can you tell us about
Were you
there?
shocked?
This was very shocking news because in the past days we have been seeing the Pope out and about, making a public appearance, greeting his public audiences. He was even in the Easter Sunday Mass. He gave a blessing for the city and the world, Urbi et Orbi. Gaya na sabi mo, he was on his Pope Mobile going around St. Peter's Square, his usual on Wednesdays and Sundays. He would do that. But apart from that, he even had high-level meetings with Vice President J.D. Vance. He met King Charles and Queen Camilla, also with from March 23 to April 21 when he passed. So he was actually in the hospital for 38 days, if you recall, at the Gemelli Hospital.
At nagsimula yan noong Feb 14.
Tama, Feb 14 to March 23, 38 days, almost 5 weeks of hospitalization. But he continued his recovery and convalescence at Casa Santa Marta in the Vatican. And he would continuously show himself and surprise the Catholic
looks
faithful.
like he gathered all his remaining strength to make these public appearances. And
To be honest, when
eventually
he left the Gemelli Hospital, there were questions when it comes to his real condition. But encouraging signs that he
Yes.
would be seen. First of all, he made his public appearance on March 23. He went to the balcony of the Gemelli Hospital. Binati pa niya yung isang babae na may hawak na yellow flowers. Yun yung unang-una. After that, he went by Santa Maria Maggiore, his favorite basilica, where he would visit every time he'd come from abroad. He left flowers there, and that is also the place he chooses to be buried in. And
anong reaction ng naging mga kaibigan mo doon? Marami kang paring
all
kasalamuha.
shocked. Yun nga, so sabi mo nga, usap-usapan kasi yan. Kung papayag ba si Pope Francis na sa Gemelli Hospital siya mamatay? Usually daw, the popes, they would want to be home. They would want to be in the Vatican for their last days. So, but to be honest, with the he's a workaholic. You see him out and about. Ang dami pa niyang ginagawa. Nag-visit pa siya sa inmates. He received people in the Vatican, yung mga physicians niya sa Gemelli. And then there were reports that he was continuously recovering. So everybody was so shocked. We had Father Earl, we had Father Coke on Storycon this afternoon. We had Father Albert Alejo, all of them trying to find words for what's been happening. Tinanong namin kung meron na bang mga gagawin. Sabi niya, nako, parang kapamilya mo lang yan na pagka namaya pa, wala ka namang pinaplano or wala ka namang nakahanda. So they're still trying to figure their way around things, but there is a mass currently or tonight at the Colegio Filipino where almost 50 Filipino priests or more than 50 Filipino priests are there who are studying at the Vatican. Yun nga, pati adjustments in the church, Catholic Church, when it comes to saying Mass, usually sinasabi nila, no, we celebrate this Mass together with Francis, our Pope. So ngayon, pagdating sa, sabi natin kanina, sa Cavite raw, tinatanggal na yon, ilalagay na doon in his stead yung Bishop ng Cavite. Sa Rome naman, dahil si Pope Francis ang Bishop sa Rome, because the seat is officially vacant, wala na rin. No? Together with the clergy, faithful clergy na lang ang ipinalit doon.
And supposedly, no, pagka yun nga, nawala na nga yung Pope, di ba may mourning, so bago may official mourning period before mag-conclave, and yung totoo ba na pati yung mga ibang cardinals may wawala rin sa posisyon? Parang co-terminus with the Pope. Minus na lang syempre sa Camerlengo at saka a few
Actually,
other heads.
when it comes to that, yung pagiging cardinal kasi ano siya para siyang lifetime appointment. Hindi siya nawawala. Hindi sila co-terminus with the Pope.
Hindi yung posisyon lang, yung trabaho, kumbaga, yung parang assignment sa mga
So everything
departments.
stops in the church.
Yeah.
Everything stops when it comes to this because they are literally, I mean, they are headless right now. So they will convene in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, but there are 9 days of mourning, and then after that will be the funeral procession. So yun ang immediate steps.
All right, let's check first on some of the reactions and messages about the Pope's death. From our president, I quote, "As we mourn his passing, we honor a life that brought hope and compassion to so many and inspired us to love one another as Christ loved us. It is a profoundly sad day." So that's from President Bongbong Marcos.
Okay, and from King Charles, King of the United Kingdom, "My wife and I were most deeply saddened to learn of the death of Pope Francis. Our heavy hearts have been somewhat eased, however, to know that His Holiness was able to share an Easter greeting with the Church and the world that he served with such devotion throughout his life and ministry."
Archbishop Sok Villegas says, "When I was mocked and ridiculed and threatened by government authorities in my stand against the extrajudicial killings, he assured me and encouraged me. He knew us and he loved us. He taught us not to fear." Cardinal Ambo David, the third cardinal appointed by Pope Francis, says, "Oh my God, I am so shocked by this. Let us please ring the bells of our churches and call our people to prayer for the eternal repose of the Holy Father, Pope Francis, who passed on just about 10 minutes ago."
Well, that was just like when he learned about it.
Yes.
Hence that
The initial reaction.
We must remember that, he came here 10 years ago.
Yes, 2015.
Yeah, January 2015. And he was fondly called Lolo Kiko.
Lolo King, yes. Even the CBCP and their address, their statement on the death of Pope Francis, tinawag nilang Lolo Kiko talaga si Santo
Sabi nga
Santo
nila,
Papa.
hindi niya malilimutan yung palayo na yun sa kanya.
At grabe rin yung pagtanggap ng mga Pilipino sa kanya. Actually, pumunta siya sa Tacloban noon, ano? Kasi pagkatapos ng bagyo na yun, at yun yung talagang pakay niya. Kahit na umuulan, on his way there, he was insisting to go because yun ang talagang mission niya here is to grieve with the families who lost their loved ones in the typhoons.
And truly, kaya ang tawag sa kanya ay the People's Pope, and that's exactly how Pope Francis was known in the dozen years that he led the Catholic Church, following the virtues of the saint that he was named after. Here's the report.
For 12 years, Jorge Mario Bergoglio served as the head of the Catholic Church. Since his inception in 2013, he took on the name Pope Francis and was declared the People's Pope. Born December 17, 1936, still photograph of a young Bergoglio with family in Buenos Aires, Argentina to an Italian immigrant couple. He was 21 years old when he developed severe pneumonia and part of his right lung was removed. In 1958, just as he finished his degree as a chemical technician, Bergoglio felt the call to serve the Lord. In that same year, he entered the novitiate of the Society of Jesus. And in 1960, he first took his oath as a Jesuit. The year that followed until 1963, he studied humanities and philosophy at San Miguel Seminary in Buenos Aires. Still photograph of a young Father Bergoglio giving Mass in 1969 was finally ordained a priest. June 27, 1992, he was appointed Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires. And in 1998, became Archbishop. As one, Bergoglio became known for his simplicity and humility, no flashy cars, and his closeness to the needy. In 2001, Pope John Paul II declared promoted Bergoglio into the College of Cardinals. In 2013, when Pope Benedict XVI resigned due to illness, his fellow cardinals elected Bergoglio as the new leader of the church, the first from the Americas, the Jesuit order, and with the name Francis, in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi, whose values he mirrored throughout his lifetime. Mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, we are One News.
At this point, let's head on over to Quiapo Church and get a feel of the sentiment there. Over the news of the Pope's death, we have News 5's Gio Robles reporting to us live from Manila. Gio, what can you tell us?
Gretchen, a somber moment here at the Quiapo Church as Catholics mourn the loss of Pope Francis, who died earlier today at the age of 88. A 5-minute of silence was offered to the late pontiff during the 6 p.m. Mass. A photo of Pope Francis now stands at the altar of Quiapo Church, a simple yet powerful tribute to the late head of the Catholic Church, which counts more than 1 billion followers worldwide. As the clock struck 6 this evening, church bells rang out in solidarity, an act called for by Cardinal Pablo Virgilio David, President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines and Bishop of Caloocan. The 6 p.m. Mass here at Quiapo Church was dedicated to Pope Francis. During the prayers of the faithful, worshippers prayed for the eternal repose of Pope Francis, that he may receive everlasting peace and heavenly reward. Pope Francis led the Catholic Church after being elected in 2013, succeeding Pope Benedict XVI, who resigned from the papacy. As mentioned by our mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, Pope Francis was born on December 17, 1936 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He was then known as Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He was known as the Pope of First, the first non-European pontiff in over 1,300 years, the first Latin American, and the first Jesuit Pope. He became the first to take the name Francis in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi. In 2015, Pope Francis visited the Philippines for a historical, pastoral, and state visit, a trip highlighted by a mass in Tacloban, Leyte for the victims of Typhoon Yolanda. Gretchen, we spoke to several devotees gathered here at Quiapo Church following the news of Pope Francis passing. While some admitted that they hadn't heard the news until arriving here at the church, others expressed shock and sadness, describing the pontiff as humble and a compassionate leader. Gretchen.
Same adjectives we're using to describe the emotions over here in the studio and over there at the Vatican. In the meantime, while we try to absorb what's been happening, we'll leave you to that and we'll get more updates from you all throughout the night and all throughout the rest of the days. We have Gio Robles reporting to us live from Quiapo Church.
And let's now speak to Reverend Father Ari Season, Parish Priest of Santa Rita de Cascia Parish in Quezon City. Magandang gabi po sa inyo. What does this loss mean to the Catholic Church po?
Magandang gabi, ladies. We are very sad with the passing of our Holy Father, Pope Francis. He has been our Pope for the past 12 years. He visited the Philippines, and I know many Filipinos feel very, very close to him and are saddened by his passing. But at the same time, we thank the Lord. We thank the Lord for having given us a Pope, a holy Pope like Pope Francis. And we pray for his eternal rest. We pray that the Lord may reward him for all the good he has done.
Father, he has had many initiatives, but for you, what stands out?
As a priest, he set a different model of being a shepherd, and he showed he showed what really matters, and it's he he was especially close to the people. And as a priest, as a pastor, that's one that's a lesson that I will always keep in mind.
Father, it's not as if we can choose the timing of our departure from earth, right? But
Uh-huh.
the timing of Pope Francis was impeccable. I mean, Easter Monday, he made a surprise appearance after Easter Mass. What do you make of it?
Um, he was in the hospital for more than a month, for 38 days. And even uh, when he was able finally to go home, we saw in his face how weak he was. We saw how difficult it was for him to speak, and yet he still went out a number of times. And in my mind, I was always thinking, what will he do on Easter Sunday? And I was just surprised that he came out yesterday. He was there at the piazza. He went for one last round around St. Peter's Square. And I think that was his goodbye. I think that was his goodbye to us, the people.
Father, I'm curious, out of all the new things that Pope Francis introduced to the Catholic Church, which is a really, really old institution, what is your favorite, quote-unquote, reform that he brought forth?
Uh, Actually, I haven't been able to pinpoint that yet. Ang dami kasi eh. Parang 12 years lang siya compared to, for example, I grew up with Pope John Paul II. Pero um, he taught us how how a shepherd how a shepherd should really be close to the people. And he emphasized the poor and the marginalized. Um, I think that's those are a few things that I will always remember with Pope Francis.
And how has that, like, changed the way you work in your parish, with your congregation? May nagbago ba sa mga applications, no, nung mga traditions ng Catholicism because of Pope Francis and the change that he brought? Nagbago din ba yung pakikitungo ninyo sa mga tao?
Um, Having a special place for the people who are not in the center, having a special attention for those who are forgotten by other people. And that's a lesson I learned from Pope Francis.
Father, the Vatican is officially sede vacante, meaning
De vacante.
the See of Rome is officially vacant.
The See of Rome?
Who leads the church now?
Okay, when a pope dies, the caretaker is the Camerlengo. And at the moment, this is Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the one who announced the death of Pope Francis. He is the caretaker for now. He is the one who will plan the the funeral of the Holy Father. So after the announcement of the death of the Pope, it's a period called sede vacante. The see is vacant. And at the same time, we start today 9 days of prayer for the repose of the soul of Pope Francis. 9 days called in Italian Novendiales. Something similar to what we Filipinos observe, the Novena Mass, 9 days of prayer. After that, we do not know yet when the funeral of the Holy Father will be, but after his funeral, then we will have the conclave, where the cardinals will gather for the election of the next pope.
And how does that work, Father? Does that also apply? So each and every church that we have, the Catholic Church, magkakaroon din ba nitong 9-day straight of prayers and masses?
Yes, in our diocese, for example, the diocese of Cubao, I just received a notice that the bishop is asking out all of us to have masses, daily masses, in honor of the Holy Father. I also just received a notice that at 8 o'clock in the Vatican, Rome time, they will have the first of the masses for the repose of the soul of our Holy Father, Pope Francis.
Father
So each
Aris,
church, each parish, if you notice, this evening, we already tolled the bells in our churches as a sign of the passing of the Holy Father. And then there will be masses every day offered for the repose of the soul of the Holy Father. The different bishops will be organizing similar masses in their own parishes and their cathedrals. Very soon, our Filipino cardinals, I'm very sure, will be going to Rome to attend the funeral, and then subsequently the conclave.
does the conclave begin immediately after the funeral, Father? How does it go?
Uh, it will take place a few days after the funeral, because there will be several general congregations, meetings of the cardinals before the conclave itself begins.
All right, we thank you so much for your time. Father Aris Sison, Parish Priest of Santa Rita de Cascia Parish in Quezon City.
This is a special coverage of Pope Francis's death. We will be taking a quick break, but we will be right back. Stay tuned. This is still the special coverage on Pope Francis's death. At this point, let's check the situation over at the Manila Cathedral with News 5's Rainiel Pawid reporting to us live. Rainiel, how are things going over there? May dumadagsa na bang mga tao?
Ladies, at around 6:02 exactly, this evening, Manila Cathedral's bell rang for 13 minutes. Those minute count corresponds to the almost 13 years of service of Pope Francis in the Catholic Church. And inside the cathedral, there's a specific or designated setup for the prayer area for Pope Francis, and the management of the Manila Cathedral advised those who wish to go here. This will open 7 in the morning up until 7 in the evening for the next 10 days. And we also got a confirmation that tomorrow by 9 a.m., Cardinal Tagle will preside a special Mass here at Manila Cathedral before heading to the Vatican. Ladies.
Okay, and supposedly as a Novem Diales, the 9 days of mourning, may announced na ba, Rainiel, na Mass schedules for the 9 days?
Kanina nakausap nga natin dito mismo yung management, at yung exact na nabigay pa lang nila is yung 9 a.m. na special Mass for tomorrow. And then sabi naman nila meron daw yun kasunod for sure, pero wala pang announce na oras. So tinitignan natin ngayon yung latag ng magiging special Mass dito sa Manila Cathedral for the next days, dahil nga inaasahan na up until gabi ay magsasagawa sila if ever maplansya na yung list ng magiging special Mass nga dito.
Alright, still a lot of moving parts for now, but thank you so much for that update. Rainiel Pawid of News 5 reporting to us live from the Manila Cathedral.
Just a day before his death, the Pope made a surprise appearance at the Vatican for Easter Sunday. Here's that story.
Cheers filled the air as Pope Francis peered from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican on Easter Sunday. He is on a wheelchair, yet was still able to relay his greetings to the Catholic laity.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
Pope Francis even met with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Vance is a Catholic, and he visited Italy with his family this weekend.
Hello. So good to see you.
Recall that Pope Francis had criticized some policies of U.S. President Donald Trump, including the harsh immigration restrictions. A formal meeting followed with Vance and other Vatican officials, but the Pope was no longer able to attend. The announcement that followed was the sad news of Pope Francis's demise at the age of 88. He died at his official residence in Casa Santa Marta. Cardinals also made their official announcements. Before his demise, Pope Francis got confined for more than a month in Italy due to double pneumonia. Catholics flocked in Rome to pray for his recovery. He was able to survive, but doctors had advised him to take 2 months of rest.
Pope Francis certainly making a lot of changes and reforms within the church, but he was very, very pragmatic about it as well. In fact, just a little bit of trivia, he currently has, out of the 138 eligible voting cardinals of the 252, because you have to be below 80, more than 100 was appointed, a total of 110 were appointed
So about
by Pope Francis.
70%, more or less.
110 divided by 138. Kung ano man yung math no, no?
That's more.
But this group is more diverse than previous electors. With a higher representation from Asia, African, and Latin America, he added countries into the fold of the church. Yung mga bansa na walang cardinal, nilagyan na ng cardinal, no?
Correct.
So in terms of inclusivity and representation, this is a more global church. The youngest cardinal elector being only 45 years old, and a Ukrainian clergyman based in Australia at that. So,
If you look back then to the last conclave after mag-resign ni Pope Benedict XVI, I remember they were saying the next pope will, yung parang maraming haka-haka. Person sabi na it's gonna come from Latin America, Asia, or Africa.
You mean his successor or the
Yung
successor to
successor to Benedict. And true enough, it became Pope Francis, who was from Latin America. And nakakatuwa kasi never pa nagkaroon ng, well, Jesuit na Pope, tapos galing Latin America,
Didn't
first
he
of his
say,
name.
when he accepted, he said, they searched far and wide in the farthest place, Argentina, can you imagine?
Yes. Almost at the South Pole,
Yes,
right?
yes. So parang, yeah, that was his kind of joke when he
Kumbaga, sanlupalop na.
Pero yung
Oo,
usapan doon no, na si Pope Francis, actually, parang sinasabi nila, mayroon pang kahit paano Italian roots eh. There is still some resistance within the Vatican when it comes to electing
A non-European.
a non-European Pope. Well, he is already non-European, but medyo close to it.
Yes.
But
I remember yun nga yung sinasabi nila na kumbaga tanggap siya ng mga conservative na European-centric, tanggap din siya ng mga reformists in the College of Cardinals. So he was a good bet. And that was
but to be honest,
shaping
when I was there were a lot of rumors of Italian cardinals meeting up. When the Pope was in critical condition in the hospital, they were meeting up because a big part of, or rather, there's a part of the Vatican leadership that wants to have an Italian Pope,
or a
because they haven't had a return to the seat of the papacy.
Not just the European descent, but rather conservatism.
Conservatism,
Correct.
yeah. Parang yun nga yung division heading into the conclave no, before maging Pope si Francis. There was the reformist side. So yung kabilang panig yung conservatives. So it's not really a race
I hope
thing.
we can ask one of our guests, what does it look like? Will the legacy, because he still has a lot to do, diba? Some progressives
This was only
were
the
quite
beginning.
disappointed.
And
Yes.
one of the things that he left behind, some work on unfinished business, was he set up a task force to do auditing on the Vatican
Vatican Bank.
financial activities. Yun nga yung parang iniisip namin, kaya lumalaban itong si Pope kasi he wants to still be part of the solution to the conflicts around the world and as well as internally. There was a Reuters report saying that he clashed over finances with some cardinals right before he was confined to the hospital. Iniisip nga kung yun yung naging dahilan ng kanyang stress. Ano? But I guess it is contingent upon the next Pope if he will continue that direction.
How that Pope will be chosen is the question.
Everybody's going to be like all eyes on that. But in the meantime, in his 12 years as the Pope, we take a look back at the legacy that Pope Francis has built. Let's watch this.
March 13, 2013, the beginning of Pope Francis's leadership. A pope with a modern and progressive vision for the Catholic Church. He was known for his compassion for the poor and promotion of peace, which is why he is loved by Catholics around the world. One of the Pope's main goals was to help the poor and oppressed. He has also devoted time to pray for the end of the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia and the war between Israel and Hamas. The pontiff also made time to meet with world leaders to call for peace, justice, and the rights of migrants. During his leadership, Pope Francis strengthened dialogue with other religions. He promoted cooperation and mutual respect despite differences in beliefs. He is also known for his message of forgiveness, mercy, and humility. While reinforcing the traditional doctrine of the Church, his perspective on the controversial issue of divorce was more progressive. According to the Pope, sometimes it's morally necessary for a couple to separate in order to protect their children. His statements regarding the LGBTQIA+ community was also praised by many.
Persone gay e cerca il Signore e ha buona volontà, ma chi sono io per giudicarla?
Pope Francis also gave attention to environmental issues and how to protect the earth. For him, climate change is a moral issue that the Church should address. In over a decade of Pope Francis's leadership, he has become one of the most influential leaders in history. For News 5, I'm Brian Basa, and we are One News.
Here at home, deep mourning for Pope Francis continues. Let's check on Cubao Cathedral this evening with News 5's Gerard de la Peña. Gerard, what's the latest from your end?
Yes, Gretchen, the atmosphere here is generally sad, if not melancholic, among the churchgoers here. And at around 5 p.m., the bells were tolled here, and nagkaroon din ng pagdarasal ng rosaryo dito. And the churchgoers said it's really a normal thing here, an ordinary thing here to do that. And every Monday, in fact, the ones tasked to pray the rosary are the members of Confraternity of Our Lady of Lourdes. But it's different this time because the Pope died. They said that after the rosary, they said additional prayers specifically for the Pope. And after that, at around 6 o'clock, they held a mass here. And we were also told this is a mass that's not really specifically for the Pope. And this mass is part of what they call the Easter octave. So part pa rin siya ng Easter celebrations natin. And what's different this time, as we were told, is that during the Eucharistic prayers, that part when they mention the name of the Pope and the bishops that we have to pray for, hindi na nabanggit yung pangalan ni Pope Francis, and after that ay diretso na kaagad na sinabi yung pangalan ng mga bishop at ng mga pare na kailangan nating ipagdasal. But during the prayers of the faithful, there was a mention of the Pope, nakasama doon sa mga ipinagdarasal na mayapa na. Bukas daw at 9 a.m. ay magkakaroon ng misa dito specifically for the Pope. Gretchen.
All right, we're still getting adjusting to the bit of news, the breaking news that we have. But thank you so much for your updates from your end. That was Gerard de la Peña reporting to us live from the Cubao Cathedral. More stories about the Pope and his life and times when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
You're watching a special coverage on the Pope's death. And as the world mourns the passing of Francis, we remember his unforgettable visit to the Philippines a decade ago. Let's watch this.
A decade has passed since Pope Francis visited the Philippines. When his plane landed on January 15, 2015, he chose the open-air Pope Mobile over a bulletproof ride. He toured the streets of Manila, greeted by thousands of Filipinos who fondly called him Lolo Kiko. Pope Francis is the third pontiff to visit the country, following Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul II. As part of his 5-day visit, he stopped by Malacanang and celebrated Mass at the Manila Cathedral, just like his predecessors. The pontiff also addressed Filipino families in Pasay.
And I remember my family, my father, my mother, my grandfather's mother. Today I rest with you.
But one of the most unforgettable moments was his visit to Tacloban. Despite the storm, the Taclobanons gave him a warm, heartfelt welcome. He celebrated Mass for the victims of Typhoon Yolanda and, in an emotional moment, set aside his prepared speech. He He also visited Ground Zero in Palo Leyte, where the devastation of Yolanda was felt most.
When I saw from Rome that catastrophe,
Sentí que tenía que estar aquí.
I felt that I had to be here.
Que Jesús no defrauda.
And he never lets us down.
After Tacloban, Pope Francis returned to Manila to visit the University of Santo Tomas, where thousands of youth were eagerly waiting. A former street child asked the Pope why bad things happen to children.
Bakit po pumapayag ang Diyos na may ganitong nangyayari? Kahit walang kasalanan ang mga bata. At bakit kaunti lang ang mga taong tumutulong sa amin?
The Pope was caught off guard by the question.
The great question of why so many children suffer, she did this crying.
Y la gran respuesta que podemos hacer todos nosotros
And the response that we can make today is
aprender a llorar.
let us learn, really learn how to weep, how to cry.
The Pope concluded his visit with a historic mass at the Carino Grandstand. Even under the rain, 6 million Filipinos came, marking the largest people gathering in history. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience to be visited by the Pope. The mercy and compassion that Pope Francis shared with us is something we will never forget, even after his passing. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Indeed, who can forget his visit here, right?
Yeah, I was actually there at the MOA in the meeting with families. No, so he met the families and he met the youth, and he also met with the victims, the families of the victims in Tacloban.
Yes.
And he kissed
I'm
some
sure
babies.
That somehow inspired, I'm sure he was thinking already of his encyclical Laudato Si, but the devastation of Yolanda for sure inspired him to make that encyclical. So now let's bring in someone who's had a personal encounter with the late Pope. We have Brother Lynch Flores, Assistant Coordinator for Work of the Saints Apostolate. Welcome to the big story. Can you share with us that time you met the Pope? Can you hear us, po?
Yes po.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. And
When
to all
was
our
that?
viewers.
When it happened? And how did you feel?
The first time that I got to meet the Holy Father was in 2014, and it was in Rome. I was very young then. I was 24 years old. And the first time that I saw him, of course, he was from afar. I didn't realize that after the audience po, he would approach and greet us one by one. And that was the time that I told him about us being Filipinos. And then we called him yung Lolo Kiko. We were advised kasi that the Pope pala po has a special love for the elders. And alam naman natin na tayong Filipinos, we really love our old people. So, when he called him Lolo Kiko, na-realize na agad na Pilipino kami. And that was the year before his visit to the country. So, I got to exchange yung skull cap nga po. This is the one that was behind me. I presented him with a new skull cap, and then he consented to give me the one that he was wearing.
Do you have it with you?
Yes, ito po siya. Ayan
Can
po.
we see? Wow! Wow, you are so fortunate. How did you... It's a tradition, it's a practice?
Yes po.
Didn't you
it
feel
was-
you were being medyo too aggressive? Hindi ka na natakot?
Actually, I was really tongue-tied. Ang tangkad po ni Pope. Parang I wanted to say so many things that at that time, but it was more, being with his presence is more than enough. I got to kiss his hand, and then I exchanged this. Pero nagkaroon pa po ako ng chance again, with all humility, to meet him again.
Wow.
The
Okay.
year after, and then 2 years after. Ito po yun. This is
So
for me.
nakailang times ka na naka-encounter si Pope 3 times?
Several times din po, ma'am. Even last year when he was already on his wheelchair, I still got to spoke to him po briefly when we went there. But the most unforgettable for me was this one when I got to embrace him. This was in 2016. That was the year of mercy. Ito yung time talaga po na I tried to study Italian para makausap ko nga siya. Kasi po, yung Pope po is more accustomed to Italian. So, I wanted to say some things that are very personal to me. And alam niyo po, when I started speaking, nagulat siya. And then, kasi other people would just kiss his hand or bless. So, nagtry ako nung broken Italian ko. And then I asked for his prayers. I told something very personal. And he leaned forward. And he really listened. He really gave me his time to marinig niya yung sinasabi ko po. And then sabi ko, before we ended, sabi niya, "What is your name?" Pamitikiami, sabi niya ganon. Sabi ko, "Christopher." Kasi that's the easiest na name of mine. Sabi niya, Cristoforo. Okay. Then yun nga po, I was able to have the opportunity to embrace him. And then 2 or 3 days after, tinweet niya yung Christopher. Sabi niya, everyone is called to be a Christopher, to bring peace to others. So yun.
You're very special to have those moments with Pope Francis. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, Brother Lynch.
Thank you din po, Mama. I think it...
At this point, let's bring in Father Gregory Gaston, Rector of the Pontificio Colegio Filipino in Rome. Good evening.
Hello po, good evening
From
sa inyo.
Manila.
Hello, hi Father Greg. Magandang gabi, magandang hapon dyan. Na-meet ko to si Father sa Colegio Filipino doon. He actually leads, yung Colegio Filipino is where the Filipino priests stay when they are studying in Rome, and I believe now there are more than 50 priests.
Kayo ba
over at Colegio.
ginamit na assistant? I'm just kidding. Ni Gretchen.
Hindi.
Hindi siya yun, yung tagabantay na.
Last minute ko na
maraming
meet si
salamat.
Father
Yes,
Greg.
kami po dito. Welcome sa inyong lahat.
Kamusta po?
Pag may napuntang Rome, punta kayo dito.
Kamusta po ang mood dyan?
Ayan nga, so kanina 7:35 in the morning nung pumanaw si Pope Francis. At 7:30 yung aming regular mass dito sa Colegio Filipino. Ibig sabihin 5 minutes into the mass, Pope Francis passed on. At hindi pa namin alam at that time, of course. That was about 1:35 in the afternoon sa Philippines. After 2 hours, tsaka natin nalaman, lahat tayo, tsaka natin nalaman na pumanaw si Pope Francis. So, nag-mass din dito yung ating mga 51 Filipino priests and 5 non-Filipinos. Yung iba nasa labas pa, nasa Holy Week, nasa Easter Week, pilgrimages. Sinamahan natin yung ating mga Filipinos, mga OFWs. Ako, I was in Bucharest, in Romania, para din sa Easter Sunday.
Talagang nagkakaroon, ito yung pahinga para sa mga tao dyan. Talagang umuwi yung mga faithful dyan. But what is the plan of Colegio Filipino today, this day specifically, and in the coming days?
Oh, so as of now, maybe half of our priests are back, but some are still with our OFWs all over Italy, all over Europe din. And then here, of course, we have our daily masses, and then priests may celebrate anytime. So throughout the day, I'm sure there will be ongoing masses, rosaries, our breviaries, also the sisters and the lay people. And then little by little, if you watch the live stream of the Vatican, Vatican Square, the plaza, doon makikita natin yung mga tao ay dumadating na rin sa Vatican, sa Square, sa Basilica.
Ang mga cardinal po, inaasahan po ba natin na darating din po at dyan po sila tutuloy?
Yes po. So inaasahan namin, hopefully makarating dito Cardinal Tagle, dito naman talaga siya sa Rome. But from Manila, si Cardinal Advincula, and then Cardinal Ambo David of Caloocan, probably darating siya. Hindi pa namin alam si Cardinal Quevedo ng Cotabato, retired. And then si Cardinal Rosales, retired din ng Manila. So yung time frame pala is 15 to 20 days. So mga 2 weeks, 3 weeks ay hindi muna pupunta yung mga cardinals dito. nandyan muna sila kung saan man sila. Baka yung iba papunta na rin. Although 2 to 3 weeks na logistics. So dito, yung katawan ni Pope. Ngayon, may 2 minutes ago, baka kayo yung unang makibalita dito na. Basahin ko lang. The transfer of the Holy Father's body to St. Peter's Basilica for the homage of all the faithful may take place in the morning of Wednesday, April 23, according to the arrangements that will be established and communicated tomorrow. So ito mga 3 minutes ago pumasok sa cellphone.
Paulit-ulit, ano pong pakiulit po sa layman's language?
Yung gist ay yung katawan ni Pope will be, yung viewing bali ng katawan ni Pope will be starting Wednesday in the morning, this Wednesday. So ililipat siya sa Basilica.
Open coffin po ba?
I'm not sure kung open. Parang open yata dati eh. Oo.
Does the Pope decide that, Father? I mean, before sila pumanaw, sila ba yung nag-i-instruct kung how they want their funerals to proceed? Do they get a say or do we follow strict tradition here?
Napakahaba na ng tradisyon ng simbahan. And I think si Pope, yung pinaka-latest na general na reform ng mga procedures, kung anong klaseng coffin, kung saan dadalhin, lahat yan, nung time ni Pope John Paul. So siya ang naggawa ng bagong procedures. And nakaset na lahat yan when it comes to coffin, when it comes to... Although, of course, I'm sure, bawat Pope, kung may gusto siyang i-adjust ng konti, pwede niya naman i-adjust.
Pero di ba, Father, we know of the simplicity and humility of Pope Francis. Hindi nga siya nagdadamit ng masyadong magarbo, hindi siya tumira dun sa magarbong lugar. So maybe there will be some of that also.
Ayun. Oo, totoo yan. No? Kaya dito din sa kapapasok lang na message, nakalagay dyan. So ilalabas, yung katawan niya will be for public viewing. So Wednesday, April 23, according to the arrangements that will be established and communicated tomorrow. So ibig sabihin, bukas may balita tayo kung anong klaseng coffin, anong klaseng arrangement.
The choice of where he wants to be buried, that's also, I mean, he made that clear very early on. Right?
Yes.
Santa Maria Maggiore daw po.
Yes, may balita na ganun nga no doon sa St. Mary Major. So even yung wake hindi pa natin alam, although dito nakalagay St. Peter's Basilica yung body niya itong Wednesday. But we don't know kailan naman dadalhin doon sa St. Mary Majors.
Okay. Bakit po St. Mary Majors niya gusto? Pakipaliwanag.
Very devoted talaga siya sa Mama Mary. In fact, nung na-elect siyang Pope, in-announce niya na he will go on a pilgrimage tomorrow, sabi niya. Hindi niya yata sinabi kung saan exactly, although only to find out na dumiretso siya doon sa St. Mary Majors the following day. No? So may devotion talaga siya.
All right, thank you very much, Father Gregory Gaston, Rector of the Pontificio Colegio Filipino in Rome.
Okay.
And Pope Francis is dead, so what happens now? The Associated Press tells us what to expect between now and the selection of a new pontiff.
The death of a pope initiates a centuries-old ritual to elect a new pontiff. It begins with 9 days of funeral rites, during which the pope is buried. Cardinals are coming to Rome from around the world to participate in that funeral mass, as are heads of state. Then the conclave procedures begin. There are a few days of closed meetings. These are when the cardinals get together and meet in secret. They discuss the problems of the church. They're receiving reports from all the different Vatican offices of what the financial situation is, what the problems are facing the church around the world, and what are the qualities of a pontiff that are needed to bring the church forward. At a certain point, they stop those meetings and the conclave begins. The first day starts with a mass in the morning and a primary vote in the afternoon. If a pontiff is not elected in that first vote, the ballot papers are burned. The smoke comes out of the Sistine Chapel chimney. If it's black, it means no pope has been elected. The cardinals return the next morning. They have 2 ballots in the morning, 2 ballots in the afternoon, until the Pope is elected. At that point, the white smoke comes out of the chimney. The world knows that a Pope has been elected, and he comes out onto the loggia of St. Peter's Basilica, and we hear those famous words, Habemus Papam, we have a Pope.
Habemus Papam.
9%.
Of
All
the
right, well,
cardinals were appointed by Pope
79%.
Francis.
Yes, I did your math. That
Okay,
you-
so it seems, picking up from that report, no, so there are 4 rounds each day. And if there's no decision after 33 rounds of voting, the top 2 candidates face off in a runoff vote.
Face off.
Yeah.
So hindi pala siya endless. Ano?
May parang sudden death sila.
Si Pope Francis, ang sabi kasi, with Pope Francis that Regina was saying on Storycon a while ago that back then when Pope Benedict was elected, he was the second front runner. And then nung si Pope Francis na yung na-elect, ang sinasabi din ng mga tao sa Vatican ay nagkaroon ng magandang speech si Pope Francis. Kaya siya ang napili overwhelmingly.
Nagkaroon siya
He really has
the fifth round.
A good touch with people. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Diba?
It's something that we can't put into words, but I think everybody feels that kahit na hindi ka Katoliko or Kristiyano.
Yeah.
But you know what I remember
Yes, a
from his
certain
visit to the Philippines was
je ne
when
sais quoi.
a child, a young girl, asked Pope Francis, Pope, why do children suffer? Naalala mo yon? Yung tinanong niya, tapos talagang nakakaiyak yung
Nakakaiyak
point na
yun.
Parang nagbebenta
Nakakaiyak
ng
yun.
sampagita, alam ko yung maliit na babae. Tapos niyakap siya at sinabi niya, ito yung wala rin akong maisagot doon sa tanong na yun.
I think that's a question that will hound us all our lives.
Pero ito yung last quote ni Pope Francis na gustong-gusto ko. I think this was from his Easter message. Do not yield to the logic of fear. And I think that's timely for us here in the Philippines, the faithful here in the Philippines.
So this has been a special coverage on the death of Pope Francis. The big story returns tomorrow at 7:30. Thank you for watching. Good evening.